Let's go. Hey, buddy.
Hey,
Thor, welcome. Thanks for coming on the show, buddy.
thank you, Brian.
Absolutely. So, my first question, I don't know actually if I've ever asked you this, but the name, Thor.
The name Thor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my mom's idea.
How did that come about? Do you know,
Um,
is there any backstory or?
so yeah, my mom was doing genealogy for my family when she was pregnant with me,
Mm-hmm.
and she found some Nordic ancestry, and she came to my dad and she just said, and mind you, my parents are, I was raised Mormon, so they're conservative Mormon,
Wow.
and my mom comes to my dad and says, "Hey, I think we should name our son Thor." My dad's like, "We're gonna name our son after a pagan god?" She's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Cool."
Let's do it. I love it. You know, every time I talk about you with somebody or mention that, hey, we can get him as a Steadicam or DP or whatever, I say, yeah, Thor work on that. And they're like, well, what's his name? You know, like when I'm making the call sheet or something, they're like, okay, what's his actual name? No, Thor is just, that's
It's Thor. Yeah.
Thor. I love it, man. I think it's so cool. Rare. I've never. Have you ever came across path with anybody who was named Thor?
Yeah. In my life, I've probably met maybe a dozen Thors. I've met a few people that had Thor as a last name. There was a guy I worked with. His name was John Thor.
Nice.
And yeah, I bump into a few Thors here and there.
So let's go back down, or let's go down the memory lane a little bit. And I wanted to hear a little bit about how did you get to LA and filmmaking, and what was the first interaction with film where you were like, I would like to do this? Um, was there a family push, somebody who helped navigate? Was there your dad or mom were like a film
Yeah.
movie buffs or?
So funny you should ask that specific question because we were just talking about it before the interview. My favorite movie to this day is Amadeus.
Okay.
And Amadeus was the movie where right around that time, I was like maybe 14 years old when I saw it the first time.
Okay.
And my high school, my dad was the principal of my high school, by the way, which made for some interesting disciplinary measures on my part for acting out in school. But so we had a job fair right around that time, and the job fair asks you the question, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do for the rest of your life? You know, fireman, policeman, teacher, doctor, lawyer, like all the standard answers. And it was right after that, like that experience got my mind thinking, like, what do I want to do? So I knew I needed to do something that was creative, whether that was going to be like fashion design or photography or fine art. Like all my interests, even at an early age, were all directed towards being creative.
Creative, so
Mm-hmm.
arts or something like that.
And then I was watching the credits on Amadeus, and it's probably like maybe the dozenth time I'd seen the film, and it occurred to me that those are real people's names rolling in the credits, and that's what they do for a living. And also, like, this idea came to me that like film is the most powerful creative medium because it incorporates or can incorporate every aspect of every other art form. So you have costume design, that's fashion. You have, the score, that's music. Acting is performing arts. It could be a musical, animation, illustration. Like you can, in one form or another, film covers every other art medium. And that was when I was like, well, if I'm a filmmaker, I don't have to choose which specific, discipline of creativity I have to go into. I could choose them all and funnel them all through
This one medium.
Yes.
Wonderful. So you realized that you could do this as a job, watching your favorite movie for 12th time, and you're like, these people are real people at the end of the credits.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I could be one of them.
Yeah, it connected for me that's what people, there's people who have that job and that's what they do full time.
And you're roughly at what age, right?
It's about 14.
14.
Mm-hmm.
And then so you continued, and then so that spiked the interest of, oh, film
Mm-hmm.
could be my outlet.
Yeah.
And
Pretty much from that day forward, like there was no option for me.
mm,
It was just I'm going to be a filmmaker, and I told my parents that, and my parents were very supportive, like from the very very beginning. In fact, my dad even funded my very first film. My first IMDb credit was something that I made on a camcorder
nice.
back in the Dogma '95 days, the Lars von Trier movement, where they were making Dogma films just using camcorders.
Uh-huh.
And so I tried and failed miserably. It was a terrible film, but
As most filmmakers,
yeah,
beginner filmmakers.
exactly. You have to dare to suck brilliantly.
Yep.
But my dad funded that. Like he took 20,000 out of his retirement, and him and myself, we wrote the script, and we cast mostly our friends. We had like maybe one professional actress, and we went down to southern Utah and made this movie about.
So this is a feature film.
Yeah, it's called Desert of Eden.
Did you make any kind of short films or anything prior to that?
Well, I did have experience with filming, just not narrative. And my experience with filming actually started with action sports, which you have a particular unique window into because you're an action sports athlete.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was inspired by Warren Miller. My dad worked at Snowbird Ski Resort in Utah.
Which one?
Snowbird.
Snowbird in
Yeah.
Alta?
Yeah, not Alta, just
Not
Snowbird.
Snowbird. Okay. I just came from Utah.
Yeah.
I drove to Colorado, skied Winter Park and Copper, and then drove to Utah and
Yeah. Which resort did you hit in Utah?
Brighton and what was the first one? Deer Valley.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful resorts.
Yeah. Deer Valley has so my buddy told me this, but what's interesting about Deer Valley is they don't allow snowboarders.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
So halfway through, he told me, but I thought he was joking. Halfway through the day, I'm like, there really is no snowboarders on the mountain, huh? And he's like, yeah, they're not allowed.
Yeah, that's Alta too.
And I was like for real, like it's not. Yeah, it was interesting, but wonderful. Yeah. So anyway, so you had so you were making some films, or you were filming?
Yeah. So
sports?
so having grown up, like I would actually ride the ski bus after school just to catch like an hour of skiing at the end of the day, and then I'd ride back with my dad. And just I was hitting the slopes like every chance I could get. And he worked up there as he was a timeshare condominium salesperson. So he was at the Iron Blossom Lodge selling timeshare.
So high school principal
Mm-hmm.
and a
Yeah, this was so he worked at Snowbird as he was finishing his doctorate in educational administration.
Got it. Okay.
So so I was like a little 9-year-old, 10-year-old ski buff, and then my world collapsed when my dad got a job. He got his PhD, and his first job was in Alabama, where there is no snow. And my whole
Did you guys move?
yeah, we did,
Jesus.
and I was devastated
Yeah, I can't imagine.
that I couldn't ski anymore.
Alabama.
Yeah,
Fuck.
so
Wow. Okay, that's a big transition.
So action sports. Back to the story. I was into skiing. I loved Warren Miller, and then there was like the other ski film people that came out, Teton Gravity Research, and then Warren's son, I think his name's Scott, took over. So I had this like pedigree of having watched action sports films from a very early age, and then wanting to become a filmmaker when I was 14. And I fused those two things together and had an action sports filmmaking career for almost 15 years. And that was before I came to Hollywood. So my sports that I chose were the two-wheeled sports. So motocross, mountain bike, and BMX. And you can go on YouTube now, and people have uploaded my mountain bike films, and I have one BMX title. And then I did motocross footage for Greg Godfrey and the Nitro Circus. But I had like I ended up shooting for Warren Miller. So
Wow.
that was like
The circle connected for you.
Yep.
That's amazing.
So that was my foundation of knowledge, came from action sports, and lots of kinetic motion in all of those shots, which is
How did you leave out the skiing?
How did I leave it out?
Yeah.
It was so saturated.
Especially when you were like, you were probably a really good skier too, right? You grew up on the mountain.
Yeah. Well, the market was saturated. There were
Okay.
so many. By the time I got to the age where I was like, 21 years old, I'd just come back from my Mormon mission, and I was ready to tackle the world and be a filmmaker. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, well, this is going to be really hard to break into. So I looked at which action sports were the up and coming.
Unrepresented.
Yeah, unrepresented, and that was mountain biking. So then mountain biking, I had the #1 mountain bike film for about 4 years in a row. When it was like really, really, each year I released a film. Like,
Were you just filming these guys and then releasing like a film about it, or was it a
yeah, well,
like a documentary, docu style, or what was the medium of what was the format of the film?
uh, less documentary and more just a collection of money shots, honestly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like that was kind of like in action sports. I love action sports filmmaking to this day. Like I still go, watch like Danny McCaskill, incredible mountain biker for Red Bull, and YouTube has like really shifted the dynamic of the economics of action sports filmmaking. But I still love it. I still watch it. I'll go, and I don't participate in any of it anymore. I'm just a spectator now. Like
Just
I'm just
enjoying.
a fan. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
actually
I
really
did.
enjoy being a fan at this point.
You gotta come see some of the skiing competition. The free ride is
Oh yeah.
it's a whole nother level now. Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to. I had footage in Warren Miller's Free Riders too.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. You're teasing me now. It's amazing.
I'm fluffing you.
It's hard to find if you're any kind of uh, you know extreme sport kind of a athlete. It's hard to find a buddy or somebody who will come on the mountain and film tricks for you and film
Yeah.
to get you can film everything now with yourself. But
Well,
it's not
I
the
mean,
same
I
thing.
have that really adventurous spirit, and like I wanted to be a mountain bike athlete, like in front of the camera at first. I wanted to do both, but I had a really bad crash, and I went unconscious for about 2 hours. And I woke up from it, and I was just like, yeah, I don't think I really want to take those risks anymore. And then, just started filming all my friends because I understood the moves and the dynamics and the physics of all that. And
Where you need to be at what time
Yep.
the jump, or
Yep.
whatever was happening. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's super important.
So setting all that stuff up. So one of the most famous mountain bike events now is the Red Bull Rampage. It's held in Virgin, Utah.
Mm-hmm.
I was the first guy on the hill with a camera in Virgin, Utah, on that exact mountain where they hold the Rampage today. So I was pioneer in that world.
Nice.
Yep.
So you got into the sports. You guys moved to Alabama.
Yeah.
How did you continue filming the extreme sport events in Alabama?
Well, that was when I moved to Alabama. I was still pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
So my family moved from Utah when I was like 10, 11. We went to Alabama for 3 years, and then came back to Southern Utah, where finished up to my sophomore year in high school, and then moved to Provo, Utah to graduate from Timpview High School. So then it was from Provo was where I launched my action sports production company. So I was neighbors with Greg Godfrey of the Travis Pastrana Nitro Circus crew.
Yep.
And ended up doing some filming for them too.
Nice.
But yeah, so that was like my bed of knowledge. And that's where I cut my teeth, and I learned editing and producing and budgeting, and so I was producing, directing, shooting, and scoring. Toward the end, I was writing my own music for my action sports films. So that period of time for me was kind of like college, really.
That was your film school.
Yeah, it was my film school. So then,
self-taught then.
Yeah, self-taught mostly. Yeah, there's a few people that were mentors, but I never really had like one person that I patterned after. So then that leads us to 2005, and I'm doing action sports, and I go to NAB, and that was the first year that Red was at NAB, and they had this crazy booth right in the middle of
with their red one.
Yeah, they had posted some stills from their prototype, and they were claiming like all these incredible resolutions and frame rates, which the Red one was like a quantum leap forward in digital cinema. And I'm standing there And I look over, like I hear people being like, "Oh, this is bullshit. There's no way they can't make this camera. If somebody could make this, JVC or Panasonic or Sony would have already done it." And I look across the booth and I see Jim Gennard,
Who's Jim Gennard?
founder of Red,
Oh, okay, yeah.
who also was the founder of Oakley,
Yep, yeah.
who I knew through Action Sports.
Action Sports, yeah. I
So,
knew the correlation of the Oakley and Red from day
yeah.
one.
So I walk over to Jim and I'm like, "So this is your company?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "People are thinking that you can't do this." He's like, "I can do it." And I'm like, "Sign me up." So I got a reservation on the Red, and that was my segue from action sports into narrative filmmaking and music videos in the whole LA world. So I had the camera.
Where were you at this time? Still in
Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City. So you
Yeah.
moved back to Utah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had moved out of my dad's place. I lived up at Sundance for a while, the ski resort, Redford's place, and then I was living in downtown Salt Lake when I ended up purchasing the Red, and was looking for opportunities to. I realized that I'd built up this world in action sports, and it had taken me all these years to develop these contacts and to really get established there. And I realized, and the whole time I wanted to make the transition to the Hollywood, like more traditional style filmmaking. And I realized that I was going to have to redo all that work that I had done in action sports because none of it was going to translate. I was going to lose all my credits by transferring universities, so to speak.
And contacts and all the hard work that goes into creating the network that, then you're on the call and you can have a stable career and financial.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that there's that whole world that goes around the actual filmmaking.
Did you buy the Red one with any kit or accessories? Did you buy they also, in the beginning, remember they had the red lenses?
I didn't get the red lenses, but I got pretty much everything else. The red lenses were not available at the time I made my purchase.
Oh, okay. So you were like
early.
Yeah. The frontier. You were taking the reservations for it before.
My serial number was 137. And there were at least 50 people that dropped out ahead of me. I was told by the Red rep that my camera was one of the first 100 cameras to ship.
Amazing. That's pretty cool. That's you're part of this exclusive club of digital cinema history.
Yeah, and those of us who had the camera that early, I mean, we basically were their R&D.
Yep. You're like, this doesn't work.
Yeah. It was an unfinished camera. I was uploading these massive R3D files, not quite at dial-up speeds, but like slow internet connections, and like doing my best to help them out. And they would send me pre-beta firmware
for
test
updates. Like, hey, try this. Yep. That's amazing.
But it was cool. It was great to be part of that little piece of cinematic history.
Yeah, I wish more products were developed that way.
Yeah, like a solid
field testing.
Test base. Yeah, field testing.
So you got yourself a Red one, and you're in Salt Lake City. You wanted to so you were kind of thinking, I'm going to transition into the traditional filmmaking. That's what you've always wanted to do. You wanted to tell narrative. You wanted to tell stories.
Yep.
So, what age are you right now? You're in the extreme.
2006. Okay, so I got the camera in 2007. So that would be, what would that be, from 72? This was born in 72. 82.
So around
Carry
30.
the one. I'm terrible at math. Time and math I'm not good at. What was that, like 30s?
Yeah.
Mid-30s?
Yeah.
So yeah, I had that epiphany. I'm like, wow, if I'm gonna really do this and make that transition to Hollywood, like I have to do it now. Like I can't wait anymore. I can't keep making action sports films and hoping that somehow it's going to transition over, because it never will. And that was when I basically left that whole world that I'd built and had my Red camera. And right around that time too was the housing market crash, 2008. And
you're like, great.
Was very leveraged in real estate. That's how I'd made the money to get my first Red. And I lost 3 houses, including the one I was living in, because nobody would buy them. Like I had new construction on 2 houses, and the market was so hot. Like I was just like, and I was like 2 months away from the other 2 houses being finished and ready to sell. and about 3 months away from my house I was living in, being able to sell it with no capital gains tax.
Was it 2 year?
Yeah.
Lived there for 2
Yep.
years.
So I was in such a good spot, and then it all came crashing down in August 2008. And by December, I decided that, and this was like all in concurrently with that thought process of I'm going to have to rebuild my whole career again. So I lost everything in Utah except for my red camera and my car. And at that point, I'm just like, fuck it. I'm going to go to LA.
I have nothing to lose anymore.
Yeah. Like, it was that Fight Club quote, is only after you've lost everything that you're free to do anything. So that was the moment for me.
That's so good, man.
I know, right?
Right?
Fight Club is like the most quotable movie ever. It's like, that's my second favorite movie.
All right. I take it. I dig it.
So yeah, I came to LA, and
You're nobody.
I had one contact in LA. It was
usually all it takes to start,
company.
right?
Yeah, one seed. So that I was like,
but you had the red one.
I had the red one, and this was my strategy. I love telling the story. So I realized in Salt Lake City, like I was watching Craigslist in Salt Lake and Craigslist in LA. And I realized that Craigslist in LA, there was enough postings for red cameras, like seeking them to rent them. I could probably make enough money off Craigslist alone with no contacts just to come down to LA and, you know, rent out the camera via that purpose and then build my contact list from there. And that's what I did. And it was like, it got lean a couple times to the point where I was like, I might be homeless next month. Like, I don't know where the money's coming from for rent. And I rented this tiny little room. There was like a sink that was literally like this big, and a hot plate and a microwave. And the whole bedroom was like the size of this room. And then like a tiny little bathroom and a tiny little kitchen. And I rented it for $500 a month from the editor of the show that was from California, but shooting in Utah. That was my one contact. So anyway, just barely made it. I was responding to ads where people were looking for Canons. They were looking for DSLR packages for like $200-300, and I'm like, "How about a red?" And they're like,
to $2,000 a day.
I'm like, "I'll come out for $250." I was just desperate to make it.
You were responding to ads for $300 a day with a 5D Mark III or Mark II, and you're like, "I'll just come out with red."
That's right. I was undercutting DSLR shooters with a red just to make ends meet.
Wow.
It was like, by any means necessary. Yeah.
You did whatever it took.
That's right.
Yeah. Wow. So you landed here, the land of the crazy.
Yeah. La La Land.
La La Land. Isn't it? It's such a La La Land here.
It's such a crazy everything. Yeah. I got, you get swept up. Like, you don't know what's real when you first land in LA. You talk to people and, they make you promises and they seem like they're these big shots and they have like some associate producer credit on some obscure film, but you've seen it on cable. And so you think that you're going to make it the big time by knowing this person, and it just like, it doesn't materialize.
Right.
And after beating my head against that wall for a long time, the realization just came to me. It's like, it's not about that. It's just about like getting your hands dirty, get on set. Work. Meet as many people as possible. Just work your ass off. Yep.
Meet as many people as possible. Imagine for me, so went from Europe, Czech Republic to Canada, which was my introduction to the film industry. That's where I worked. And Canada was kind of like colder version of Czech Republic with English speaking people. But then LA, that transition was like what you were talking about. It was just like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on in here? But so do you remember your first kind of so you were renting yourself out as a DP? Camera operator?
I'd go out as anything. Like, I'm just like, I have the camera. If you need the camera by itself, cool. But I also didn't have insurance on it. So I was like, if you're renting the camera, I'll be on set with you.
Even if you're not paying me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I gotta.
Yep.
That's
if anything happens to this, I'm done. Like, literally. So yeah, I would go with the camera to set, and that turned into,
connections, right?
yeah,
You're already there hanging out all day,
exactly.
like, oh, talking to the director, the
Yep.
producers, the DP, the Steadicam operators.
Yep. And of course, I would try to get paid for that if I could, because like being a red tech was actually a thing in the beginning because it was such new technology, and
Yeah.
like DPs were scared of it,
Yeah.
and
And you could
ACs
be there
were.
and troubleshoot,
You're
like,
right.
I
Yeah.
remember, so I shot my first ever thing that got me into the union in Canada on the Red One. It's a commercial, it was a competition. I've sunk about 12,000 Canadian dollars into it. The grand prize was 25. We did one, got it. And then because of that, I made some connections. But that thing, like the boot up, of it and everything, like it had a boot up, like it booted it up.
Mm-hmm.
It took what, like a minute or something, right, before it like powered up.
It
And
was almost 2 minutes. Yeah.
yeah, it was a long. I remember it was like a long time.
Longest 2 minutes of any filmmaker's life as the
yeah,
sun is going down.
and the files were so huge, and nobody like really was set up to work with it, and the raw files and everything. But yeah, I was like, that's gonna be huge,
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was looking at the Red, they were already talking about. I think this. So my exposure to that was 2007, 2008 too, in Canada, and then I segued into becoming a working professional in the union in Canada. But I remember that Red Tech, in Canada, there wasn't a lot of those guys, and I remember there were problems and finding somebody on the phone or like trying to figure out. So I can see how valuable that could have been for you to be on set and be like, yeah, I know, that's my baby.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just press right, this,
Mm-hmm.
this. So how did that progress? Where when did you had that realization? Okay, cool. Now I'm getting kind of. I'm assuming just kind of one thing led to another. You started to meet more people, and then you were getting booked more and more and more.
Yeah.
Was there a transition to where you start getting booked as a DP more so than just the red guy with the red camera?
Yeah. So I didn't have to underbid too many DSLR shooters. Did that as often as I needed to just to pay the bills, but also used the red camera as a leverage point. And my first feature film as a director of photography, obviously aside from the one that my dad funded, was Killer Holiday. And that ended up going to Lionsgate. Okay. And for about 2 weeks was the #1 horror film on Redbox. And
Redbox, man.
I know, right? What happened?
Why don't you tell audience what Redbox is for the people in the... So I didn't tell you in the beginning, kind of the idea of the podcast is there's a lot of people deciding to go to film school, now, like the beginning process of wanting to enter filmmaker world. And there's all these different... I love that you segued this information into the podcast today about how you watched the credits rolling and you like the realization that all these are working professionals. So the podcast is called Below the Line, Above the Line. You got, a few seconds of the credits that roll in the beginning. They're the above the line, and we need them. We love them, and movies can't be made without them. But then you go on a 15-minute roll of credits of the hundreds, if not thousands of people that are what's called below the line, that work on the movie, that like, oh, those people get paid to be there and their name made it. So I loved that you shared that was your experience. So the podcast really is for people that are in the beginning stages or have been in the industry for a little bit and are kind of maybe looking to make a drastic change, kind of like you did, going from Salt Lake to LA, or transition, or finally go for it. And this is just storytelling of people that are, in the industry now, being hired, constantly working, and are working professionals,
Yeah.
So when that clicked for you and you were now in Hollywood, you're in LA, you're getting hired, you're on set, you're meeting people, you got the red camera, you get this first feature film gig. Would you say that was a big break for you?
That was a huge break.
Okay.
Yeah. That
How did you land it? Was it just through the connections you were making on the smaller sets? You finally ran into somebody who was like, you like Thor?
Well, so the way that happened was I was working on a show in Salt Lake or in Utah. Got hired out of Provo. They were actually shooting in Helper, Utah, which is like kind of 90 minutes southeast of Provo. And that is where I met they had a on-site editor, and that's his basement bedroom that I ended up renting. And on that show, one of the lead actresses took a Facebook picture with my wife, Kaylee, in a hot tub, and the director that was going to cast that lead actress in another show, which was Killer Holiday, saw Kaylee in the picture of the hot tub and said, "Who's that?" And then by the time we were done with that feature film, like a month later, we'd moved to Matt's basement apartment, and we'd stayed in touch because the director wanted to basically, do a reading with Kaylee and see like if he wanted to cast her, and he casted her, and she's like, "Oh, by the way, my husband owns a Red." So he was like, So then I met with him. And I made him.
You came in with a DSLR rate with the Red. With
Almost. The Red. It was pretty low. So
yeah.
I shot the entire feature as DP, Steadicam operator, and.
Did you had any prior Steadicam operator? Because that's your main bread and butter now in the film industry, right?
Yeah.
We'll get to that a little bit later. Yeah. But did you had any prior Steadicam experience?
So I owned a Glidecam, and I used the Glidecam. It was a V8. It's just a single arm, doesn't have the two stages, just a single stage, and it would attach to everybody knows the handheld Glidecam gimbal, and so that arm and vest would attach to that. So I used that for action sports.
Okay, so you've developed some footwork and some movement and how the balancing in the camera works on the Steadicam in the action sports.
Yeah,
which is a fast fucking movement, and so you got dialed in. When you get to theatrical and more narrative. Like it's more of a, unless you're doing action movies or whatnot. But okay, so that was a slow down version pace of what you were doing in action.
Exactly.
Sports. Okay, perfect. So you had a lot of experience actually.
Yeah, so I had about a year of experience with the Glidecam, and I was mostly shooting trials mountain biking because everything else I was shooting was just moving way too fast. So, but it worked really well. Like what I see guys doing now with handheld gimbals with trials and BMX and stuff like that. Is what I was doing with the Glidecam back then.
Like a Ronin S or something like that?
Yep. So that's basically how I was using it. So then I had, there was a buddy of mine, Stan Paik, who had purchased the red edition of the Action Products sled and vest and arm. And
Red made also?
No, Action Products made it, but they called it the Red Edition because it was designed to pair with the Red One.
Red One?
Yeah. So they wanted to make a low cost Steadicam solution because when the Red One came out, there was like it caused ripples across the entire industry.
Yeah.
And all kinds of production ramped up to like service that new aspect of acquisition.
And just for the audience to get a grasp on, the Red One wasn't a light camera.
Yeah,
it was maybe 12 inches long, about 5 inches wide, and like another 6-7 inches tall. Like it was a pretty sizable.
It was.
Then the battery, all of that, and
so Action Products, when they designed the sled for the Red, a couple of things they did that were really ingenious. They left a slot in the top of the neck of the sled that you could run any cable through that you wanted to, so you could put the red touchscreen. Actually, it wasn't a touchscreen back then, but you could put the 5-inch or whatever it was. You could put that as your monitor.
So you put it in the bottom counterbalance of the steady.
Exactly. So I didn't have to buy a trans video or anything like that. So their whole thing.
So there was no Teradek or anything. It was a hard connection cable that went through the arm. Down to, and then your battery pack was on the bottom too. Could you run power too?
Yep, I ran power up from the bottom. Now I leave the battery on the camera because the cameras are light enough, and it works for the distribution of weight for balancing.
And it's quick too.
It's way quick. You can take the camera off the sled while it's still on, hand it to the DP, and he can go do a handheld shot, which can be really key sometimes when you literally only have 30 seconds to do a changeover. So,
interesting.
And we could talk about technical stuff on Steadicam maybe toward the end.
Absolutely. I want to segue real quick back to finish the big break.
Yeah.
Killer
Holiday.
Killer Holiday. your wife gets the
So
part.
yeah, so she gets
My
cast.
husband has a red.
Yeah,
The director starts thinking about this and start
yeah.
putting. This is your big break
It's
project.
my big break. So so he offered me $5,000 for the run of the show,
Mm-hmm.
and I took it. And
I
that
would.
was and he knew that I'd been a cinematographer for years with action sports. Like he checked out my other work, and that satisfied him. It's like, this is your first narrative feature, but I've seen your other work, and like, I trust your eye, I trust your instinct.
He was willing to go into the trenches with you.
Yeah, he took a chance on me, and he wasn't going to get that deal on a Red One at that time from anyone else.
Yeah, nowhere near close to that, probably.
Yep. So that was my wife's first starring role, like major casting in a feature film, and it was my first time as a cinematographer. And my buddy Stan owned the Action Products vest, sled, and arm, which is what I still use to this day. And that was like literally like 12, 13 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But he still owned it, but he tried it and didn't like it because it just like, he felt like it was going to damage his body, and it probably would have. And he's just like, I can't do this. And I have this piece of gear, so why don't you keep it, and whenever you take it out the door, you just pay me a percentage of whatever you take it out for.
Mm-hmm.
So that way I had Steadicam, but I didn't have to make the full investment in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next film that I worked on,
I'm just gonna buy it.
yeah, I talked to the producer of the next film. I says, hey, you don't have the budget for Steadicam, but you want Steadicam, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So I have to pay this guy money every time I take it out the door. So if you want that system on your show, write me a check right now for the entire amount you're going to pay me for the whole show, and I'll go buy the Steadicam, and that'll be I'm done. You don't have to pay anything extra. Just pay me what you're going to pay me anyway. Just pay me right now before the show, and then you won't have to pay for Steadicam, and neither will I. So he did it. So he wrote me a check for the whole
It's
amount.
a little chance, but yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit of
It was a good deal for them.
Yeah, it was a good deal for everybody.
Yeah.
And
was this a recommendation from the feature that you did, the first feature you did, kind of trickled, like just another connection you made there and feature film and the movie?
That came from a totally different place. By that time I'd been building contacts for my Craigslist ads that I'd been answering.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So so you, from day one, you were kind of a DP and a Steadicam operator.
Yeah.
At some point that shifted really heavily towards Steadicam operator, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember, maybe not the reason why, but like what was the indicators of like?
So yeah, I'm gonna put a piece of the timeline in, which was I started getting hired for just Steadicam, which I did not expect. Wasn't planning for that. Didn't expect it.
With the red still?
With on and off with the red. So sometimes they'd want me to fly something else. But back then, like in the early days, like red was the only game until you could fly a DSLR or you could fly a red. And then eventually Arri came out with the Alexa. So it was during that.
Do you remember how many years after the red one came out, the Alexa came onto the market?
I want to say there was probably about a 2 to 3 year market lead. At least 2 years, like between I don't know what year
the
Alexa first came out, but I do remember that there was at least a 2-year time period between when I had my camera, which was earlier than most people, and when I started seeing the Alexa and getting requests to fly that instead of my red.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then so I got a referral. Somebody referred me to Jay Towson, who's like one of the biggest music video producers in LA. He does stuff for Cardi B, Drake, like pretty much everybody. Like he's produced videos for all the huge hip hop artists. He contacted me for Steadicam because he's like, I need Steadicam, I need it cheap. And somebody's like, oh, I got your guy, it's Thor. So he like called me up and he's like, hey, I'm sorry, I only have $250. Can you come out and do Steadicam for $250? And I was like, yeah, sure. Okay. So I came out and I arrived on the set and I'm like, tell you what, for like another $150, I'll throw in my red. And he's like, I don't have it on this one. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'll let you use it anyway. So I brought the Red camera and Steadicam for a grand total of $400 in a day and age when Reds were still pretty hard to come by.
Yep.
And that relationship was the seed that sprouted into the tree that is now my career in music videos. So from Jay, because Jay had like line producers and even PAs that were under him that all went on to become like big music video producers themselves.
Yeah. The group around spread out, created all these little.
Exactly. Like that, it just bloomed. And then I became all of their like favorite Steadicam operators. So suddenly I have like a dozen really, really solid music video clients.
Clients that kept bringing you steady work for a Steadicam operator.
Yep. So that all kind of led into that, and then the Red has had various degrees of popularity within the filmmaking community. And I've always been a fan of Red. Like, nothing against Area, but there's just something like about the design principles of the Red camera that just really fit with my process.
Mm-hmm.
Like, having a touch screen to me is a big thing. Image quality, I think that like at Video Village, sure, you can make the argument that the Alexa looks better. I'll buy that. But I also know that the Red signal is very pliable, and with a little more work, you can get it to look just as good, if not better. So there's like that whole debate between Area and Red, but I'm pretty much a Red guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I still love like the workflow.
I was a big fan of Red from day one too. Yeah, it was a revolutionary industry disruptor on a massive
it really was
scale. Yeah.
So the Red came out in 2007 and the Alexa 2010.
Okay.
The RE.
Yeah.
3-year leap.
Yep.
It's pretty significant. I like the ARRI, the LF now, and the LF Mini.
LF's a beautiful camera.
Yeah.
I love flying the LF Mini.
Well,
yeah. I shot 15 videos in a row for Justin Bieber, the beginning of 2020. It was his visual album.
Okay.
So they did like a dance video for each one of the songs from the album, and it was all shot on 2 ARRI Mini LFs.
Is most of that stuff out or not?
Yeah,
yet?
it's all out.
It's all out. Cool. You shot all that?
Yep.
How was it working with him?
He's an interesting character. He's very reserved.
Because 15 videos, that's a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he wasn't in any of those though. He didn't make an appearance in those videos.
Oh, okay.
So they were funded by the label, and he was supposed to make an appearance on at least 2 of them. We were planning on having him on set, and he just didn't show. But they knew that he might not want to work on those videos because he'd already shot like videos that he was featured in. So like a lot of artists are doing 2 versions of videos now, like for a single song. So they have like a dance version where it's just like really great choreography, usually like, clever things with like set pieces and stuff like that. And so, yeah, that's what we did on that one. But I've shot 3 other videos with Justin Bieber. I shot I'm the One, the one he did with DJ Khaled, and one he did with DJ Pooh, and one other one I can't remember.
What's your experience working with him?
He's really reserved on set. He's very I don't want to say standoffish, because it's like, people talk about stars and they talk about, like how they act on set and all that kind of stuff. You hear like vastly wild stories like, oh, this person is the nicest guy, or oh, this guy's a total jerk. And I think that with Justin, it's just like, he's Justin Bieber. He's like one of the most famous people on earth, and when he's on set, he's there to work. So I think that he
showed up to work.
Yeah,
he's at work. His
showed up for reservedness is just like, it's like he has to insulate himself from everything that's going on around him, just so that he can stay centered in what it is that he does. And I think it's that way with a lot of artists.
Yeah.
But he's never been like, he's always been, polite, just very reserved, just kind of in his own bubble, which is completely understandable.
So whenever it's blocking, rehearsal, or anything like that, he's present there. He'll do the work. He'll communicate and everything. But then once he'll go into his little zone and focus. Yeah. You mentioned something that I kind of wanted to quickly ask you about, because you probably have so much you've seen this so often
Mm-hmm.
when the artist doesn't show.
Yeah, when the artist doesn't show.
Uh, I've been there a few times, and the amount of music videos in that world that I've covered or worked on is very limited
Mhm.
compared to how often you work in that world and how much you are doing in that world. Um, I can't quite still comprehend when did that become almost like this cool thing that's almost like shared among the artists, to where you get to that level where you don't have to show for your own music video.
Right. Where you could just blow off the whole.
And the people, all the crew and everybody who've committed and is there and working, the director and the people that creatively came up with this thing, and then you just don't show.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Like, how do you deal I mean, how do you deal with it? Or like, have you had any opinions about it, or where did it stem from? Where did it come from? This idea that
Well, I could tell you, I'm not gonna name any names here, but I can tell you that a couple of times that the reason that there was a no show is because that artist just partied way too hard the night before, or even like leading into the morning of.
of the music video. Yep.
Yeah, and they're just like literally too fucked up to be able to do anything on a set. And that's more of like like in one sense, like you if you're a professional, you should know that you have a shoot tomorrow. Like I can't do that. I can't party super hard one night and then just not show up for Steadicam the next day.
Yeah, and fly
You know?
fly the Alexa for 12 hours or whatever.
And I think of it also like in terms of being an artist too. Like, so I have a fledgling DJ career, and I'm looking at all the resources that are just the clock is ticking and the artist hasn't showed. And I'm just looking at that and I'm like, wow, like I would die for this much resources for myself to shoot a video.
Right.
And it's almost just like,
You have a crew of 100
yeah,
standing around waiting.
I'm like, what a waste. I bet everybody, I mean, it's not a total waste because we all showed up, we all got paid, we get to pay our bills, we get to feed our families. Sort of thing.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's a little frustrating. We had one artist show up like literally 30 minutes before we had a hard out at the location, and it was not negotiable. Like we couldn't go into OT because another production was coming in.
What did they tell him when he finally did show up? All right, we're leaving.
No, they said, go to this set. We're going to do one take. Go to this set. We're going to do one take. So we had 4 zones, all the zones that we were supposed to shoot for the video. We had them all lit, all prepped, all props, all background. Everything was ready to go. And we just took them. We did one take in one setting, moved them over to the next setting, did one take in each of the settings, and then they just cut that together, and that was the video.
Will you tell me privately later which artist, which music video is? I want to watch that music video.
All right, yeah, I'll tell you.
All right, cool. You've been in the industry overall for now, what, 27 years?
Yeah, so I'm turning 49 tomorrow.
Whoop, 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 whoop.
And
Happy
I started.
birthday to you.
Thank you. I started when I was 21.
Yeah.
So that's what, 28 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuckload of time. And you are now working primarily as to-go music video hired Steadicam operator. Everybody kind of, it's a big city, big world, but kind of everybody knows everybody.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's why they call it Smalleywood.
Smalleywood.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody knows Thor. And did you, when you start getting hired for the Steadicam more and more, did you kind of not gave up, but did you kind of stop looking for DP work as a director of photography?
Yeah, I stopped marketing myself as a DP. Like the clients who know, like the ones that I've been with for years, and they still hire me to do both.
Mm-hmm.
And then and the conversation comes up sometimes with directors or producers or sometimes even DPs themselves, that that's something that I do, but it's just not something that I pursue. I work a lot, and I feel like I just don't want other DPs to feel like they have to worry about me competing with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
It is a very competitive world too.
so competitive. Yeah. And I recently approached the subject of maybe co-DPing something with one of the DPs that I work with regularly, and it's the first time that I've brought that type of subject up with another DP that's hired me a lot, and he bristled, and I could just tell that it just wasn't like
no.
Well, it was a hard no.
Yeah,
and it was interesting because it was with a client that I work with a lot as a Steadicam operator and occasionally as DP. And there was a thing where the show that I would be co-DPing with him on was done with that company. And so to me, it kind of felt like, this is sort of my world. You're coming into my world. So can we figure out something here where I can at least use the footage in an event? Like I'm recutting my DP reel. Not that I'm pushing that like side of myself, but I at least want to have something that's up to date so that when I get asked, I have it.
Yeah.
And I was like, can we work something out here where it's a co-DP situation? And he's just like, no. And then I haven't gotten a call from him since. Maybe he'll call me. I don't know. I love him. He loves me. I think we're good. But my point is that,
the competitiveness, and the edge of stepping over somebody's toes. It's
right.
a very thin
delicate
line that you have to learn.
And the one time I flirted with that, which was fairly recently, I made the decision that is a bad idea, and that my previous policy of just not going there is the best for me.
Yeah, loyalty. You've worked for this one music video producer, and all of his team then scattered through LA, started little production companies. Now they're all making these, like you said, you've created this kind of a solid roster, Rolodex of contacts that provide steady work for you as a Steadicam operator. How important is that loyalty, and how do you create that? How do you work that with somebody? What would you what would be your take on creating that loyalty? And how do you then, have you been in a way heartbroken, and we don't take things too personally. We always say business is business, but if that person who like hired you for years and years and years, all of a sudden you're available and he's hiring somebody else, how do you deal with that? You just let it go? You make a call and be like, hey, what's up, man? Like
I just let it go. Like
yeah.
I try to never make a direct thing out of it, because all it's going to do is just make them uncomfortable and me uncomfortable. So what I try to do is just be interactive, be present, because I know that whoever they started using instead of me, there's going to come a point in time, probably even within the near future, that guy is going to be booked on something else. And who are they going to call? Who's going to, if I moved into that second spot, do I want to be a dick about it and lose that second spot? And then they're like, I just don't get a good feeling from Thor. Or do I want to be like, no, man, I'm ready to show up for you the second you need me. And then checking in every once in a while, like texts or phone calls or, comments on social media, just like, oh, that's such a fire video. Like, even if I wasn't the Steadicam operator for it, just always being positive, always like showing support. Because like I said, the next time so-and-so Steadicam op that they're using now isn't available, who are they going to call? They're going to call the person that they have the best feeling about, which hopefully would be me, because I've, cultivated
Do you have an idea why you think the switch to call somebody else happens with somebody you've worked with for a really long time? I'm assuming it could stem from you get a call and you're not available.
Yeah. Sometimes it's as simple as that.
You're not available and they meet somebody else and they get along, and that person, they're like, okay, we have an option A and option B now.
Yeah.
How do you approach the no answer? I can't do it, I'm booked. Is it as simple as we're all professionals and we kind of know how the industry works? When I get a call and can you come AD this? I'm like, I'm on another shoot. How do you handle just straightforward, hey, I'm booked on those dates, sorry,
yeah,
can't help you?
That's what I do. Yeah. And So this is a little piece of information that could be helpful maybe to Steadicam operators and maybe even other industry people. So I I have, because rates are always a thing, no matter what position you're in, right? So I have this thing where I make a deal with a producer who wants to hire me for less than what my standard rate is, and I say yes, I'm willing to put that date on the calendar for you, but if I have another offer that comes in that's for more, I'm going to take that and I will help you find a replacement. And that helps me to keep my rates up, but it also helps me not lose work. Because if I don't end up booking that day and I'm at like, maybe 75% of my rate, I still want to make that money. But I also realize that that's all that producer has to work with in that situation. And I also say, okay, so I'll come out for you on this one at this rate, but on the next budget you do, if you want me to be there, put it into the budget up front, so when the client approves it, that number's already there. So that's a little piece of advice that I could give to anybody who, is like fighting that rate game. But then there's been a few instances where there's been miscommunication about, me saying to somebody who's already booked me, hey, looks like I'm getting an offer, but I don't clarify with them and say, this offer isn't a final offer. I'll get back to you. Please don't book anybody instead of me until I get back to you and let you know that this other one is confirmed. And that's where, like, I try to be very, very conscious of situations like that, because I also have to think about it from the perspective of the producer. They don't want to be canceled on. They want to have a great Steadicam operator. They've reached out to me for a reason, because I was their first choice. And so there is that aspect of potential disappointment, but it's also about managing expectation and just being really, really clear in communication.
Clear line of communication is key.
Always, yeah. Yeah, when in doubt, talk about it and be specific.
Yeah. Is there anything in the Steadicam world that you wish for a long time that would change, or kind of maybe adapt, or something that you've been waiting on that's been a big kind of a bother? Or
well, technology wise, I really want to make my own gear. Like, I want to make my own Steadicam sled and vest and gimbal. I have some really strong ideas of what I want to do with that, but it's just a matter of, having the R&D money, which I don't have. So piece by piece, I'm really excited about some of the things that are happening. Like, I really love the concept of the Trinity, but it's also very heavy. It's very cumbersome. And, you see these highlight reels of these guys doing some pretty amazing things with the Trinity, and there's some operators that are just phenomenal with it. I operated a double helix, which is very similar to a Trinity. And while I love the concept, for me personally, I need to see the cameras getting down in weight and size to like the Komodo level. But Komodo is it's a compromise in some ways. Like, my favorite camera is the Gemini, dual ISO, compact body. I could put DSLR lenses on it to keep it super, super light. And I think that I'm excited to see
the Gemini Monstro sensor.
Just Gemini sensor. Yeah.
Okay.
Red. Yeah. The Monstro is also amazing.
Yeah.
But I like, because it's the Monstro,
the compact version of the
Monstro. You can push up into that 3200 ISO range, but it's still not a native ISO. Whereas with the Gemini, you actually flip it from a native 800 to a native 3200.
Let's go back. So Trinity, real quick, is a Steadicam rig that's made by Ari, or Ari, sorry. And but other than just a Steadicam arm, it has a gimbal at the end of the arm, instead of just a fixed position of the camera, and you can gimbal the camera, right?
Yeah. So you have 2-axis gimbal at the top. One is your rotation, your Z-axis. Which is like horizon assist. And then you can basically start with the camera like all the way down on the ground and be doing a shot at ankle level. And as you tilt your arm, it comes up, and you can go all the way to eye level in one sweeping shot. So it looks very much like a techno crane.
Yeah, you can even actually go above. No,
Yeah,
quite,
you
quite,
can
quite.
go
You can reach above.
go about a foot to a foot and a half above eye level.
Maybe not my height.
Yeah, not your height. It'll still be like this to you. But
Because
that
I've seen some incredible shots with the Trinity too,
Mhm.
where it almost looks like you kind of craned up.
Yeah.
You know, because with the extender, I think it has what, like an 8-foot reach or something like that.
something like that. Yeah, it's a lot, and it's a really really cool piece of technology. But once you get that camera, like if you're running like a mini LF, a mini LF it's a more compact size than the full size LF, but it's still very dense. Like there's so much electronics inside of there that the body itself is very heavy, and then you add your
Teradek.
Preston MDR and your Teradek and your matte box and your this and your that and your rangefinder and all these things that like DPs and ACs that work at the level where the Trinity makes sense economically for those types of budgets. They want all the bells and whistles, and then you get all those bells and whistles on there, and
And you have
it's so far away,
30 pounds.
and then you have to counter all the weight up there with weight back here
hmm
on the sled,
and then that's all on you.
and that's and by the time you have all that weight, it's just like
What's the weight capacity of that rig? Do you know, the Trinity? What can it actually handle?
like a fully built up Trinity for the vest, sled, arm, camera, and all the counterweight batteries, you could be up to like 70, 80, 90 pounds. And at that point, it's just really difficult to move that much mass.
Yeah.
And then directors and DPs want this like really fast.
And when you do get
moving-
to move and you get all that energy into the movement
Mhm.
and stopping all that weight,
Yeah.
that forward momentum is like, fuck,
Yep.
you know.
And then it's all that strain, like on your spine and on your ribs and on your shoulders. And for me, like I'm just waiting for cameras to become a lot lighter.
hmm
I think that the Komodo is a really good step in the right direction. That it's happening.
It's isn't it insane, bro?
It's insane.
Right? Like this thing takes such good photos,
Yeah.
videos, and just mind-boggling.
Well, the technology is marching in cool directions, and that's going to affect cameras. It's going to affect accessories. It's going to affect Steadicam. So I'm really excited about where we're
The
headed.
Komodo, I think, is a good step towards that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It needs more features.
Yeah.
It
Well, it's a
needs-
crash camera.
Yeah. It needs dual native ISO, and it needs a few things.
But for $6,000.
But for 6K, and they're going to come out with another version of that, and they're
The
working
12,
on
15K version of
Yeah.
it, and that's going to be...
they're working on DSMC3. So I'm really excited to see what Red comes up with next, because they've been silent for a long, long time.
You've been in the industry for so long, and you've been a Steadicam operator for now, what, 12, 13 years or
Yeah.
something like that?
Yep.
Health-wise, do you have any tricks in your sleeves that help you take care of your body, your spine, and your, do you certain exercise or anything like that I've heard a lot of Steadicam operators suffer with back pain and,
Yeah.
So do you have any tips or tricks out there for
Yes, I do.
aspiring Steadicam operators?
So the single most important thing with Steadicam and taking care of your body is vest adjustment, is making sure that the vest is distributing the weight across your whole body. So like when you're done with a really rigorous day of Steadicam, you're definitely going to feel sore. You're definitely going to feel like you just put your body through the ringer, but you should feel it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't feel it in one spot.
Mm-hmm.
When that happens, it means that part of your body is what's going to get worn out the quickest.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel very fortunate that I started with the Action Products vest, and to this day, and every Steadicam operator has their preferences, right? But
Mhm.
like I've tried, I had a Clausen for a week on a project, and I didn't take my standard vest with me, and I regretted it. And I hurt so bad after that week, and I just could not get the Clausen vest to fit my body the way that the Action Products vest did. So I ended up like buying another Action Products vest to replace the one that I had originally, which was getting to the point of being worn out.
The vest you have now is
Mhm.
no longer made, right?
That's correct. Yeah, Action Products went out of business.
Yeah. So you were like holding on to this thing, like
Yeah, and anything at this point, anything that goes wrong with it, I'm just going to either I actually just replaced the whole strap system on it with a custom designed one. So the straps used to be like about this wide, maybe an inch and a half, and I was just getting this like really, really bad knots in my shoulders. And I was like feeling like this whole part of my body was sort of like collapsing a little bit over the years. And so I did this design where now the strap basically goes from the corner of my neck all the way out to the outer
so
part.
much wider padding area for
so
shoulder.
I've got like a good 5 or 6 inches of strap now.
Wow.
And it spread the weight over my shoulders so much that
Did you sketch it out on a napkin and just went to some fabricator and say, hey, could you make this for me?
Yeah, I actually have an amazing person, Catherine. She is a fabric guru. So because all the straps are just like fabric and like nylon straps and stuff, she was able to take the old straps and make a pattern off of them so that they fit the same contours, but then just widen out the straps super wide.
Straps.
Yep.
It's aluminum?
Aluminum vest with like memory foam pads.
Have you ever thought about like maybe taking your vest at some point and going to a fabricator shop and maybe doing like a Kevlar carbon combination lighter even version of that?
I think that with the technology that's recently available through 3D printers, that I could do something with a 3D printer. I wouldn't even need to go to that level.
To a fabricating shop and just.
Yeah, so I'm actually very interested in doing that. That's on my list to do this year.
All right, sir. Well, what you got going on now? What's next for you? You're turning 49 tomorrow. Congratulations again.
Thank
you. Made it. You have arrived in Golden Gates. We've known each other for some time now, and you know, I know that you've always had the itch to moving back into the more filmmaker. You know, you're on the set all the time. You have all the contacts, and we've clicked over an idea and a story. But what's in the cards for you? You're still working as a Steadicam operator.
Yeah.
You have an undying love for that craft.
I do. Yeah, I want to do Steadicam for as long as my body will allow me to. And being 49, you know, I'm looking at, you know, the next 10, 15 years, and hopefully cameras get lighter and I'm able to keep, you know, going for a while.
Yep.
But I'm always going to love that feeling. Like even the roughest day of Steadicam, I get done and my body hurts, but I feel so satisfied with what I've accomplished that day. I can just go home, you know, like the ride home is like revisiting all those cool moments during the day.
I've seen you do some hardcore days, man.
Yes, you have.
Yeah. One of our first shoots we worked on together, where I was in a position where we could like actually kind of collaborate and work. You were like hardcore. Was it double, or you know, you were pulling like you were on a shoot and you came to us, did a full shoot with us.
I did a triple dip that day.
You tell the audience what that means.
Okay, so film shift is 12 hours, and I came from a set. It was Mod Sun. That wasn't a full day though. That was probably about an 8-hour day.
Okay.
And then drove straight from that set and came to your set, which was Falling in Reverse.
Yeah.
And then like we had an overnight shoot, so we wrapped it like probably 6 or 7 in the morning, and then went to another shoot after that.
It was a half day, right? Like a few hours.
Yeah, like a half day. So altogether, I probably had 26 maybe hours of operating.
I've heard these words. Thor's a beast. Yeah, he's crazy. That's insane. I don't know how he does it. I mean, what was your recovery from that? Like, usually take probably a few days after that, and just like.
Yeah, I think I actually had work the next day, but I went home from my next half day the next morning. Like I was done. I was like, I just need to collapse
and sleep.
Yeah. So I think I worked the next day, but it was like it was later, like a noon call or something like that. So I just went home, took an Epsom salts bath, did some stretches.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you do yoga or any kind of stretching?
Yoga for sure. Yep. Yeah.
It helps with the.
It definitely helps. Like I have to like open up my hips. There's a lot of pressure in that area where the vest hits the intersection between your hips and your torso. And and stretching out the back of the legs. Down dog is really good for that. But yeah, I've got like a series of videos that I follow on YouTube that's like anywhere from like 15 to 30 minutes, and I make sure I do at least one of those like every other day.
Cool. Maybe you can share some of those with us, and then we can put them in the bottom and
Yeah,
link in the description of the episode.
For sure.
So what do you got going on next? Steadicam, but
so like what I have a few different areas of my life that I'm trying to get going right now. So you know, one of them is like designing some new Steadicam equipment, which I hope to do. Like the pandemic really put a big kink in the funding, because the only money I have to go from to make stuff is what I make on set. So you know, like there's a big fluctuation, and I actually got COVID in January. I had a whole month of work booked, and I had to cancel all of it.
This year?
Yeah.
Oh man, brother, I didn't even know that. How was it for you?
I didn't get the lung thing, thank God. Like I didn't, because that's what puts you in the hospital and potentially kills you. But I got really, really bad body aches, bad fever, bad chills.
And you were tested, and for sure you were positive.
Yeah.
You had COVID.
Yeah, I had 3 tests that all said I was positive. And then coming out of it, I continued to test positive, even though I'd done my quarantine and I had no fever, which the CDC says can happen for up to 3 months after you've had it. So then I had producers that were telling me that if I couldn't get a negative test, I couldn't come to set. So
obviously, yeah,
big dent in my income. But yeah, moving forward, you know, I'm pretty much backed up to full swing. So I anticipate I'll be able to fund some of my own Steadicam equipment projects here in the near future.
R&D.
Yeah. And then as a lot of the listeners may know, I'm also a DJ. So I've been writing original tracks. I got a hip hop track I'm working on right now, and because I'm so embedded in the hip hop community as a Steadicam operator, and like over the years I've developed these relationships with the artists. The goal is to, you know, bring some of them in on the tracks that I've been working on. And then I'm throwing a music festival at the end of May over Memorial Day weekend.
Plug it, brother. Plug it. Where is it? Where is it at? How can people find it?
It's called Metatron's Gathering.
Okay.
And the name of the company is Metatron Gatherings, which you can find on Instagram and Facebook. And
we'll put all your social.
Cool.
And
it's all just getting started. Like this is brand new. Like as of a couple of weeks ago, decided to do an event for Memorial Day weekend because the pandemic seems to be grinding down, and cities and counties are able to
reopen.
Yeah, give us permits. Like we're gonna do. It's gonna be a mask event. We're gonna wear masks, but we don't have to worry about social distancing. So that's really cool.
Noise.
And I love me some live techno music.
I know you do.
Dance music.
I know you do.
I can't wait to get out there.
I'd love to. I saw some of your Instagram posts where you're like, guys are like in the middle of the desert. You set up a little DJ booth. It was super windy, I could tell, but like, you were just rocking out there, just having a blast. Having a good time. That late to the night with the truck and the lights turned on to you know, I love it.
That was Sunsets Collective, and that was a group of filmmakers who are also DJs, and we made a pact with each other to go out the desert and play sets, and if we're not playing, we're filming each other, and then we just rotate through the DJ booth, and then that relationship led to the Metatron Gatherings.
Nice.
So and then one more thing we can talk about a little bit. We're still on the formative stages of this. I got into filmmaking like when I was 14. I wanted to direct. That's my only vision. Like I had tunnel vision for directing. And I directed as, you know, action sports producer, director, shooter, and all that. And then when I came to Hollywood, it was just so difficult to break into that world.
Can I pause you there for a second? The action sports. Did you had fun as doing it? Were you truly like? Did you find your happiness? Did you love it?
Oh yeah.
So you won already. You know, that's like that. I feel like a lot of people chase this something, you know, money or this or this or that, and I feel like for me, like one of the things that I truly love right now in my life is this: sitting down with my friends or people in the industry and just talking and learning new things about things I didn't know about the industry and little things. So I was wondering if that action sport world was a true passion, love for you, that you were so like.
It was, yeah. Like I was an avid mountain biker.
Cool.
And so, yeah, it was a true passion. All of the career moves that I've made really have been born from passion. But the one thing that I haven't done very much of, and at a certain point I had to kind of like let it go, like, was, I came here to Hollywood to be a director.
Director.
And because I bought a camera, that made me a DP.
Mm-hmm.
And because I bought a Steadicam and got really, really good at it and became known for that, that made me a Steadicam operator. So there was like a lot of opportunities I was trying to create for myself to get an opportunity to direct.
Yeah, I think your story is really inspiring in a way that, and eye-opening to. You're the prime example of somebody who had their eyes set on directing from day one, but somehow through the process of going into the industry, segued into becoming a working professional.
Yeah, exactly.
I had a very similar experience. I wanted it to be a director. The reason I did this competition thing that I wrote, produced, and directed was to become a director. And I got opportunity to become a trainee assistant to a director. And I worked my way up to be a first AD. And, before you know it, 5 years goes by. And I'm like, I know almost everything there is to know. Blocking, working with actors, rehearsing, camera, this and this and that, all the departments kind of bottlenecked through me. Learned so much, but I'm nowhere near closer to being a director.
Even though you're in the position that's right next to the director.
Yes.
And that was the frustration that I felt being a DP.
Yeah.
I could not break through that glass ceiling.
Exactly. Same here. Absolutely. I feel your pain. It was like, and I made that drastic decision to just, and union first AD, just everybody also, you're kind of union in between Steadicam, right? Union, non-union. Union first AD TV, Canada pays really fucking well.
I bet.
Like really fucking well, and I was 23, 24, 25, imagine, right? I had all the bachelor toys you can imagine and no real time to enjoy them because, that's a 12-hour, 5 days on or 6 days on, 1 day off, 5 days on, 2 days off, or straight, and then like a week hiatus or whatever. But my point is, I loved being on set and all the things that came with it, but I was, again, nowhere near to being a director, and nobody would allow the opportunity to segue from, well, you're an AD.
Yeah.
Yep. So I made that drastic cut, and I was like, fuck it. And the reason I mentioned the money was because like that was a big decision. Like people thought I was crazy. Like, how are you going to leave this stable career you got yourself into working and just completely like split? And I was like, well, I wanted to be a director. So that was like, I'm done. And within 2 or 3 months, I moved out of Canada, moved to LA.
Yeah.
And I was just like, fuck it, I'm done. Finished a season of a show I was working on a second season, and they were like, we're going to season 3. I'm like, see ya.
Sometimes you got to just go for it. And I went for it a few times, and I got a few music videos and some things that I've directed out there, but for me it was a matter of like surrendering, I guess, because I actually resented Steadicam for a while. Like I was not connected to my craft because I resented not being able to direct, because it felt like every Steadicam job I did was like one step further away from what I'd come to do. That
can be a very depressing, dangerous mindset.
Yeah.
To be in.
What I came to the conclusion of, and this is actually like the moment you asked earlier, like what was the moment where your Steadicam career just like blew up? And then that was just like, that's what you do. It was when I released my obsession with directing and embraced, I took a step back and I said, because at this point I'd done like, the Chainsmokers Don't Let Me Down video, like 1 billion views. I'd done one of the Justin Bieber videos by then. Like I'd like notched some pretty big projects as a Steadicam operator. And that was a point at which I was just like, the opportunities that are coming to me to work on that, like these really high level of projects, it's coming to me through Steadicam. And I finally made that decision. I'm just going to embrace this. And it doesn't mean that I won't direct. Like, I feel like that's coming to me in my future, on a project that hopefully we get to work on together.
Yes, absolutely, brother.
But at the same time, it's like sometimes in life, and this is like career and life advice for everybody listening, sometimes you just have to bloom where you're planted. And somehow that just accepting and surrendering to this is what my path is, at least for now, and just really shining in what that is, opens doors for you that if you don't do that, you'll remain stuck.
You won't see those doors even.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you're too focused on the resentment and regret of what you were talking.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're channeling that energy,
Mhm.
you're not channeling anything that's actually going to progress you forward.
Very well said, sir. Well, and on that note, thank you so much for coming today, buddy.
Thank you, Brian.
This was a lot of fun.
This was great.
I've learned so much about your story and how you arrived to where we are now and the project that we're in, talks of putting forward.
Yeah, I wish we could talk about that a little bit more, but we haven't put all the framework together.
I think we'll in a few months or so we'll have you back on the show when we have a little bit more news about this project that I'm so excited about.
I think that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I look forward to it.
All right. Well, I hope everybody took something from this story, because you've been really, truly in the industry for, a couple of decades now. And you've seen big ripples of the industry, like the introduction of major breakthrough in digital cinema and Steadicam world, progress and whatnot. And you are one of the number one, people in LA that get steadily hired on some of these larger projects. So you've kind of seen it also. I think there's a lot that people can learn from your story and everything you shared today. And I'm very grateful to have you on, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share those experiences, and hopefully, people listening can have takeaways from it.
Absolutely, buddy. Much love. Be safe out there, everybody. Be kind. Thank you for listening. Bye, everybody.
Bye.